Welcome back, guys, to CFL Central, CFL content for the fans, by the fans. And we have our review of Week 21 here, the last week of the CFL regular season. And I am so hyped to get into it and to get into playoffs that are coming up now. So, yeah, let's get right into our first game, which is going to be the Bombers versus the Lions in Winnipeg. Winnipeg wins 24-9. It was interesting to see the Bombers actually play Calero's fourth quarter. To be honest, I wasn't expecting that, even with, even though it was just a quarter. I was probably expecting that they just keep him out. There was kind of this debate during the Lions game, the Bombers-Lions game in BC previously between the announcers of if Caleros would be played or if he wouldn't. And it sounded like they didn't think he would, but he was. So he was played for about a quarter here. And Nathan Rourke was back. He played for a quarter. And you can tell he's been out of it for a bit. He wasn't exactly in that form he was before, but I mean, who kind of expected that? So Zach Caleros put up a great performance to start the game for the Bombers and would help the Bombers get an early lead, 14-0 over BC. This is something where the Bombers have been this is about one of the only things where they're actually a little inconsistent with throughout the entirety of the season was getting that early lead. A lot of times near the start of the season, the Bombers are constantly catching up and edging it out in the fourth quarter. So I think it will be important for the Bombers to be able to get up early, especially when they have a week off here. And then they'll have their first game, which will be the West Final of the playoffs. So this will be quite the experience. But this was a very good game. Dakota Prukop would basically kind of get the reins here for the Bombers, and Adams Jr. would get the reins for the Lions here. And now the thing is that Dakota Prukop, it was really interesting to see the style of QB that he really is. And having a full game of Prukop, it's become really obvious to me that he's very much like a Taylor Cornelius. Very, very tall, and and his best work is mostly when he's running. Which makes sense though, because the Bombers, whenever they have short yardage, they don't bring in Drew Brown. They bring in Dakota Prukop to get that done. So it makes sense that he was able to have some success there. So I think it's very good for the Bombers that they have a backup that can throw and a backup that can run, and it just gives them a lot of options. With that. And it made sense to give Prukop the game. Drew Brown got the last game against the Lions. He put up a great performance. And Prukop put up a solid performance as well. He didn't get any touchdowns, didn't throw any interceptions. But for what he was doing, he did his job well. And he did a good job at really evading some defenders when he was running. So good performance by him. Overall, solid performance by the Bombers. The Lions really didn't get much going. I think the Lions are going to have to hope to have a lot more success against Calgary coming up here because it was one of those things where when they went down early, they just never really recovered from that, and that was kind of it looked like it was a little demoralizing for them. So, Lions hopefully can get their crap together when they play Calgary this coming week. And then our second game of the week was the Alouettes versus the Argonauts. Montreal wins 38-33. So a solid performance by the Alouettes to get the victory here. Again, like I said, these games between Montreal and Toronto is going to be important for Montreal, even more important for Toronto, just to really get a grasp of what their opponent has to offer, because Toronto's got a full week to prepare for that game when they're off, and if it is that they're playing Montreal. So they have time to figure this stuff out. And yeah, but the issue with Toronto here is actually kind of similar to the issue with BC, but even worse. And it's simply that they let this game get out of hand too early. They were able to put up a touchdown, 7 points in the first quarter. They gave up 21 points in the first quarter alone, 28 in the first half of the game. It's hard to win a game where you give up 28 in the first half. You really need to be able to rally back, but the thing is not getting that. You can't get yourself down that early anyway. So it's one of those things where, as much as the Argonauts would really, really get close here to the victory here, they wouldn't quite get it. And I think the moral of the story for both teams here is defense has got to be a little better. Chad Kelly played here in quarterback for the Argonauts, threw 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, 264 yards. Not bad. Very, very solid performance. And Dominic Davis with a similar performance, 166 only for yards, but 2 touchdowns and 1 interception, respectively. So good ratio between the touchdowns and interceptions for both quarterbacks that were playing. And yeah, just it looks like they pretty much pulled out almost all their starters for this game, and this was really a battle of the backups. So, take this game and this score with a grain of salt, and it'll be interesting to see how it comes during playoffs. But then our third game of the week was the Hamilton Tiger Cats versus the Ottawa Redblacks. The Hamilton Tiger Cats continue to be hot, 23-16 over the Redblacks. Hamilton's doing solid. Hamilton looks like they finally started to click. And this is a really important time for that because they're going to be having a big game against Montreal this coming week. And we'll have to see how that goes. I know Hamilton is looking to get back into that Grey Cup game, go for round 3 against the Bombers. It'll be interesting to see if they're able to get that done. That would be quite a stretch to be able to do that. But wow, that would be something. 3 years in a row of the same final if Winnipeg wins. If Winnipeg wins. I'm just saying that if the Ticats got to the final, because it'd be just kind of crazy if you had Bombers versus Ticats 2019, 2021, 2022, and nobody else got in somehow. Even with how much talent that the Ticats have lost. So overall, the moral of the story here for the Ticats, at least what they were able to do, is they were able to consistently put up points against the Red Blacks. Not necessarily being able to put up a ton. At absolute most in the quarter, they just got a touchdown. But being able to consistently put on points on that board so their number keeps going up. Ottawa, if they're able to stop Ottawa just a bit, that will be enough to win the game. They had 2 shutout quarters where Ottawa was not able to put up anything. And Matthew Schultz had a solid game. Caleb Evans, not the greatest game for Caleb Evans. Averaging 4.4 yards, not even half a first down is not good. But they're gonna, it's just not what you want. Darvin Adams is solid, about 12 yards on average, I'd say per reception. For the Red Blacks, this would be obviously the Red Blacks' last game of the season, not in the playoffs. And I'm interested. This game against Ottawa for Hamilton has not been really, really important. More or less, just getting some field time before playoffs, being able to try some new things. And see how that works. And normally when you're being a little bit more experimental, you're not exactly going to have a blowout game, especially when you're playing mostly your backup. So, is what it is. Solid game for Hamilton. Hamilton wins. And our last game of the week is the Saskatchewan Roughriders versus the Calgary Stampeders. I almost butchered that. I don't know how. And Calgary wins 36-10. Saskatchewan. Oh boy. So this would be Saskatchewan's last game of the season. As I said, I believe in the last review or the last preview, one of those two, I can't remember. Saskatchewan is eliminated from playoff contention. They will not be in this year's playoffs. And wow. You'd think that with one more game, they'd try to really put up a strong effort and get something going, but nope. Mason Fine has a mediocre performance. Jake Mayer doesn't play exactly great. He does throw a touchdown pass, but overall, it could be a lot worse. Just doesn't get as many yards. A lot of short passes, I'd say. Tommy Stevens, star of the game here for Calgary, 163 yards, 4 carries, 40.8 average. Wow, and a touchdown to boot. And you gotta say that's gonna be a great performance here for the running game of the Calgary Stampeders. And it's funny because you're talking about a quarterback here that was able to get this in just running yards. So great game for Tommy Stevens. And wow, what a performance in what would seem like a meaningless game to an extent. But more kind of salt in the wound of Riders fans here. Calgary here was able to put up very consistent point numbers, though, with a high of 13 in the first quarter, 10 in the second, 3 in the third, 10 in the fourth. Saskatchewan, you can't win a game where if you're giving up that many points. You just simply can't. And so I'll be interested to see how this goes. Reggie Begelton played fine, For a game where there was not a lot of throwing offense for the Calgary Stampeders. They were trying to focus more on the run game. getting ready for their game against BC. Yeah, it'll be interesting. So, yeah, Calgary wins us 36-10. And I want to know what you guys thought of this week's football. I know I've been rambling a little bit. My apologies about that. And boy, I am excited. The CFL playoffs is here. I'm going to have previews of both those games coming up this week. So stay tuned for that. And I'll see you guys next time.